Just start. And 5 are the motivational mantras that sound great on social media but don't translate well into real life. Let's get started. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for clicking on another video. I do hope to hear from you. If you have any comments, observations, or inputs for me, I would love to hear them. And if this is the first time that we're having an interaction, welcome. My name is Neha. I'm a coach, and my key focus within coaching is to help individuals and organizations work towards their brand. It is something I'm truly passionate about, and I truly believe that it is something that we can all craft for ourselves. So, today we are talking about not all of them, 5 of the motivational mantras that you end up seeing on social media a lot, and definitely on videos of how that's all you need to kind of get successful. Now, in real life, I feel like each of these needs a little bit of additional support, for the lack of a better word, because it they don't work by themselves in isolation. And then when you see this information on YouTube or on any other social media platform, you tend to look at it only in isolation, which is where I think the the disconnect is for me as a coach. The first one that we will talk about is just start. I mean, how many times have you come across that one? Just start. That's it. The first step is the hardest. That's all that you need to do. You just need to start, and you'll figure things out along the way. All of those things. Now, of course, starting is important, and I am proof that starting is important. I've been thinking about doing this podcast for God knows how long, but putting myself on video out there for everybody else to sort of um, scrutinize at whatever level of scrutiny that they want to put is difficult. Without a doubt, it is very difficult. The deal with just start is that it talks about action in its singularity. You're talking about taking the first action, which I do not disagree is very, very is absolutely critical. But think about it in terms of momentum, if you will. When you have taken the first step, the second step will automatically happen. But when you are here, that is when the third step becomes very, very difficult. Now you've said, okay, I've started. Which direction should I go in? Which path should I now take? And that is why I'm talking about just start as something which is an action in its singularity. Now, what was to happen if you were to take that action and put it inside a plan? There has to be some amount of thought that goes into what this action will result in. When you look at an action in its singularity, you're looking at it from the perspective of what it looks like at that particular point in time in that particular environment. Goals don't function like that. Goals are far above in the horizon, not something that happens today, something that you need to plan for. And so, while action at the first step is important, understanding the goal, understanding why it is important for you to have that goal, and why is it important that this action needs to be taken today, is what will give you clarity in terms of following the path. Does that make sense? Something like a SMART goal template can be a great way to have some clarity before you actually begin anything. Because what the SMART goal template will do is ask you some thought provoking questions which allow you to understand the importance of the action today and how it is connected to the goal that you're working for, which is far into the future. Just start in itself, it almost sounds like a New Year resolution, if you will. How New Year resolutions die on the first week of February. That's what happens when you take action just like a just start without having a plan in mind. In fact, there was a consumer survey done by this company called Statista, and it reveals that only about 8% people globally achieve their New Year resolutions, and most fall off the radar by the second week of February. Another one that kind of gets my goat a little is hustle harder. And I think I react to it personally because I had been a huge believer in hustle harder or hustling harder for the longest time. I just kept telling myself that if I just keep showing up, if I just keep working hard, if I just do, something magical will happen and things will change. I think in reality, what we need to do is also understand that it is not about just doing, it is about being smart about what you're doing. And that is where, again, a plan, a goal, a strategy towards your goal comes into play. You have to hustle, of course. There are days where you will have to put in all nighters. There are days where you will have to do much, much more than you can possibly imagine that you can. But those days ideally need to be few and far between. If you have a strategy and a plan that you're following, it would become easier to do hard things in a decided amount of time and execute well. And there's actual data backing this concept. In fact, there was a study that was done by Stanford University, and they found that productivity actually declines sharply after about 50 hours of work per week. And in fact, after the 55th hour, it has actually gone down to being almost negligible. If you need more information, there was also a Gallup study that was done, and that states that 23% of employees report feeling burned out very often, and 44% are mostly burned out sometime or the other. And here's a good one. World Health Organization recognizes burnout as an occupational hazard. I mean, I found that extremely funny. In fact, what it says is that symptoms include energy depletion, reduced professional efficiency, and a ton of other stuff. So, if you have clarity in what you want to achieve, you can put a plan towards how that's going to happen, and therefore, it might be possible to have routinely productive days instead of having spikes of a lot of hard work, then a burnout which is gets longer and longer every time, and the whole hustling harder routine is something that is in your head but not really translating out into anything. Now, of course, why are we doing all of this? Why are we finding goals and giving them strategies and plans? And why are we thinking of how we are working about it? Because we want to follow our passion, do we not? And that brings me to this motivational mantra, which is, yeah, follow your passion. Um, yeah, it is important. If you like what you do, it becomes easier for you to do it. Yes, definitely. And for doing it day in and day out for the next 20 years, it's definitely important that you like what you do. Um, but here's the kicker about following your passion. The question that we forget to ask ourselves a lot of times is that, is this something that I'm passionate about, which I would like to pursue when I have free time because it makes me happy, it gives me joy? Or is this something that I want to also carry the weight of being the financial means for my living? Let me explain. I love baking. I love baking. I really like the concept and I enjoy baking breads, I enjoy baking cakes, all of those things. But if you were to ask me that I should become a baker on a regular basis, no, think of it simply as passion or different passions being something that allows you to operate in multiple fields to a varying degree of interest, involvement, and experience. That's all there is. In fact, a good way to understand this would be the fixed theory of passion versus the growth theory of passion. Let me explain. The fixed theory of passion looks as your interests and your passions as being something that are fixed. They're not moving, they're not changing over time as you grow. And if you haven't found something for that passion to turn into a monetizable opportunity, or you haven't become a rock star if playing the guitar is what you like, then your passion has not been worth it. And the growth theory of passion says that interests can be developed over time. As you move along in life, as you go from being a student to being a graduate school student to being a young person who's just joined the workforce to being a manager to being a leader, your interests, your space in life, your time in life, your other personal choices will dictate which passions or interests you can pursue. But it doesn't need to be that, oh, I am not pursuing my passion, so therefore now work needs to suck. Or this is something that I'm passionate about, so I'm only going to do this and I'm not going to look at anything else. Follow your passion, but with some degree of reason. That's all. For the longest time, I believed that my passion was to create one company in a particular fashion. And then when I decided to part ways with it, I felt lost for a fairly long time simply because I was like, oh, I have left what I was passionate about. Now, what else is there to do? It took a while to understand, and today, what I have landed on, with a full caveat of saying it might change tomorrow. Today, what I have landed on is what I'm truly passionate about is to create new things, is to deliver ideas in ways that that are appealing to my audience. And one way that I have found to deliver my ideas is through YouTube. Now, I'm very passionate about it today. I really want this to grow. But a few years down the line, if it changes, I should be okay with that, right? Because I'm about creating new things. I will go and find something else to create. That's my passion. So what I'm trying to say is you need to kind of ask yourself these questions about how you would like to feel when your passion or your interest delivers on the goal that you set it out for. It's a way of understanding measures of success in coaching parlance. How would I like to feel when I've actually pursued my passion to its fullest? And what does that work look like? Am I interested in doing that work? Is that something that will actually give me joy, or is it I just like the idea but I'm not really willing to put in the hard work? So follow your passion by all means, but let's put a little bit of realism into it. Here's another doozy. You have identified your passion. You think that you will be okay to do it for years and years on end, and you will be good with what the goal result is, and you have created a strategy. And now, when you start working on it, there will be days, undeniably, there will be days where you're like, what did I get myself into? And at that time, what will you say to yourself? Trust the process. Yeah, that's another one that you get to hear so many times, right? Trust the process, trusting the process. Now, the deal with trusting the process is, first of all, it is not inflexible. It can't be because you created the process. So, who says you can't change it, right? And trusting the process needs to be, again, taken with a certain amount of strategic thought. Now, let's look at the YouTube videos that I'm trying to create. Every single time I am trusting the process and I am saying that yes, it will take me X, Y, Z, months, years to actually get something out of it. But at the same time, I also need to keep going back, looking at what I have delivered and understanding how is it that I can improve it. So the last couple of videos that I made, somebody suggested that, you know what, your voice is not so great on that. I'm trying a mic today. Let's see how this works out. I'm trying to figure out how the lighting can work. I'm trying to get more structure into the podcast so that they make more sense. And therefore, yes, definitely trust the process, but also be okay with questioning it. If you were to extend the whole concept of trusting the process towards yourself in your organization, or if you are the leader, you know what it looks like? It looks like one person laying down the rules and everybody simply following them just because. If nobody questions anything that's happening in organizations, or if you don't question what your brand is doing, then they're bound to be this sense of complacency that sets in, which doesn't allow for improvements or refinements to take place. And there's some data to sort of back this idea as well. There was a Gallup survey done on employee engagement, and it said that at most an organization can expect is actually 30% engagement from their employees. That's it. Only 30% of people are actually engaged in what is happening because everybody else is trusting the process. Now, yeah, has it been a little bit cynical, this podcast? I don't know. But the last one that came to my mind, which I definitely do not prescribe to, is good vibes only. Call me a cynic, call me whatever. I don't think that you can always think positive thoughts at all points in time. I mean, it doesn't work. How can it? It's irrational to say that I'm only going to think happy thoughts. And the reason I feel that is because if you're constantly telling yourself, think happy thoughts, think happy thoughts, think happy thoughts, even a few here and there niggling negative doubts need to be quashed, right? Because you've told yourself the story over and over again that you're only going to have positive vibes. It doesn't work. I would argue that sometimes you lead a little bit of negativity, you know, that little bit of sense of anxiety, if you may call it, so that you are on your toes, you're actually worried about the result. It's not like, yeah, okay, I'm only thinking positive thoughts, I don't care what's going to happen. Of course you care what's going to happen. When it doesn't go your way, you will care, right? There's some research that's been done around this concept as well. In fact, there is this leading psychologist by the name of Barbara Fredrickson, and she developed this concept of positivity ratio. And what the positivity ratio says is that for every three positive emotions, to stay in balance, you need one negative emotion. So essentially, what we're saying is, yes, it's great to only think forward, only think about positive things. I don't think thinking forward is all about being positive, but it's not just about having just positive thoughts. It's also good to have a little bit of self check at all points. If there is something that your gut is telling you, if there is a negative emotion that is coming up again and again, you probably need to examine it. You probably need to understand where it's coming from, what it means, and how do you want to acknowledge, accept, and understand its implications, and therefore go back all the way to understanding whether you need to refine your process, understanding whether this goal works for you or not, and everything else. So that's broadly it that I had for today. Let me know, does this make sense, or I'm trying to make it too extended an argument for your liking? I would love to hear your thoughts. If you haven't yet subscribed, I really don't know what to do with you, but please go ahead and hit subscribe now. And if you found this video helpful, do share it. Share it with someone who you think might find this helpful as well. And tell me more in the comments. See you. Bye bye. Bye.